Welcome to the UpLevel Podcast, Chang and Chishan. I'm so happy that you're with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So let's dive right in. Chang, how are you defining this concept of right relationship?
Right. So this is something I am also learning at the moment in a coaching supervision course, but it's talked about all the time that relationship with self is at the core. And so there's a lot of what I learn about self-regulation and stuff. So that's the right relationship. How are we with our body? How are we with our feelings? With our mind, everything. And can we be an observer of what's happening with me, this person? And then it expands to the relationship. And so if this person is reactive and everything, there's no way I'm going to create a right relationship. And so it starts from here, and then it expands to the other person, and it expands to us. And then we start to co-create, co-regulate, and then somehow work around us just get done more effortlessly. And so that's how I see right relationship.
Beautiful. How about you, Chishan? How are you defining it in this moment?
So I'm a mindfulness. I practice mindfulness. And I think mindfulness is really all about being with self first. And I think for me, my sort of inner drive beyond my role as a coach, leadership facilitator, what I do professionally, my role as personally, I think my most inner drive or sort of the high dream I have about why I'm here on this earth and this life is really that the moment when I do leave, that I'm at peace, I can surrender, and I feel ready to do that. And I feel everything I do up until that point is the preparation for that, my whole life. And so when it comes to being a relationship is how could I really let go? How could it be at that moment when I'm passing that I can really feel like I'm at peace, I can let go, I'm ready to transition. I think I need to really work on being in a relationship with myself, the mindfulness of being self-aware, what's happening with me, at the every present moment, and extending how my relationship with other people around me. Am I able to arrive to a place in my life that when I do transition, I must have to be able to create that kind of relationship with others to help me support that moment when I transition. So I know it sounds kind of strange and kind of working backwards looking at it, but it's a very much a high dream. I'm not saying I'm anywhere near it, but knowing that's my innermost drive in this life, I think helps me to navigate how I can be in relationship with myself and how I can be in relationship with others.
I don't think there's anything strange about that. That is super beautiful and profound. And you've taken us deep fast, which is great because that's like exactly where we want to go now, exploring this topic for over a year. I was saying to both of you when you asked, like, what is part of my vision or what am I learning by exploring right relationship? And this feels really appropriate. I told you that I was with a group of leaders inside an organization 2 weeks ago, and they're seeing 2,000% increases year over year. And their leaders are still saying to them, faster, more. And I got so pissed off. I just got so pissed off. Absolutely not. Like everything you said, Chang, about like our nervous systems and our emotions, like people are so dysregulated because of that structure of what success looks like, faster, more. And so Chishan, you're setting like a new KPI or new OKR is how will I feel about how I related to myself and others when I die? How about that? How about that for the new KPI? Now, what I shared with this group of leaders in the organization was, what if the new measure of success is not about faster and more, but it's about how present can you get to yourself and others. How deep can you go in relationship with your clients, with the folks that you work with? And again, like Chang, you said, the work then starts to flow when that is our orientation. So I'm so appreciating both of your perspectives. And I see too how you must be a brilliant co-lead. The listeners have heard that, one of the reasons I wanted you here is because I know that you're co-authoring, co-creating a beautiful body of work for coaches called Coaching with Your Whole Body. So Chang, tell us a little bit about what that work is and weave in how that relates to right relationship.
Yeah, would love to start with this. I want to give the credit to Chishan because doing a leadership retreat or something that's related to the body, deep work, is originally Chishan's idea. And so when we had a chat about it, and luckily she trusts me enough to invite me to go on the journey together with her. And I feel lucky that I get to do this work together with her. And so that work itself, because all three of us come from coactive. And to simplify that, it's the being of things, it's the doing of things, and how the hyphen connects everything. And we look at how this world, as we just mentioned, is so focused on performance, skills, doing, and how we allow that to drive us. And that is causing so much misalignment in the self. Right? In the self relationship often gets ignored. And that misalignment or that dysregulation then leaks into our relationship. It starts to impact our health in ways that we can't even imagine. So, and ultimately, it actually negatively impacts the outcomes, which people are actually driving in the first place to get. And so the Coaching with the Whole Body retreat, we hold the intention to really come back to self, really come back to a really big sense of acceptance. Like Chishan is really into mindfulness. And we just allow ourselves to be ourselves for a couple of days together and just see how magically the connection with self start to form. And then the connection with one another in the group start to form. And then magic starts to happen. Neither of us know where this is going. When we enter with a group of people joining us at the retreat place, neither of us know what's going to happen, but we just look forward to what's going to unfold. And that is really just allow things to happen in a much bigger sense.
Powerful. What would you add, Chishan, to this body of work that you're co-birthing and creating?
I mean, she said it so beautifully. I don't even know what else to add. I think I want to say, I actually want to thank you for giving me the credit. And I also want to give a credit, speaking of elders, is I got this idea not directly, but because of Jeff Jacobson. As you know, speaking of a coactive elder, I got a chance to co-lead a playful workshop with him for China. And we had over 100 people showed up. And it was all about how can we make coaching playful, and Jeff is such an embodiment of joy and fun and playfulness. And when we did that training and you just see all these people lit up, I think it gave me this aha moment on, wow, this is actually what's needed in this moment. I think so. Speaking of different culture, I feel Chinese people have such a strong work ethic. They have such a strong sort of goal setting mentality that I think sometimes at the cost of it, they don't get a chance to play. They don't get a chance to be having playful. And I think part of the playfulness is really being connected to their being, their self. So doing that workshop and training just kind of had that revelation of, wow, this is something that is needed in the space and something that we can offer and contribute. And it just, I think the everything aligned. Chen moved back to China. So it really just kind of, I saw her and I just blurted out. And we have another wonderful partner with us, Mei Ling, who's kind of the engine that drives the whole thing. And it just, I feel like it's really the universe kind of know that this is meant to happen, and we just kind of picked up the signals and manifested. Really, I feel like that's ultimately what it is. Yeah.
It sounds like being in right relationship with yourselves, like your individual visions and values. And then, like you said, the universe brought you together in the right time and presented the right partners. And now you are being an embodiment of the work. So, what are you learning about right relationship in a business partnership? And I know you're friends too. So, how are you navigating all of that?
It's actually really interesting because I actually haven't had a chance to talk to Chan about this. Is when I saw her, I just kind of got excited and I just blurted out, and then really not knowing whether it was going to happen. And then it, with our other partner, Maylene, really helped us to driving it. I thought, oh my gosh, it's actually going to happen. And I think that there was a moment of, wow, we're going to be shifting into a new relationship. And now, I think, although I know Chang quite well and I feel really comfortable, and I think this is why I brought it up, but it's a very different relationship. Our previous relationship, we would co-facilitate a training for a few days and then we would part. So, it's a very much more of a temporal kind of relationship. And this is much more, as moving into a business relationship and much more sustained relationship. So I think there was definitely a moment of, could it work? Will it work? Not that I don't believe in her and Maylene, but just sometimes you just don't know. I've had experience in the past where I transitioned from friends to business, and it surprised me sometimes things didn't work out the way I thought it would. So I think I did had that feeling, and I think what I appreciate is that this is where Coactive came so helpful. Is that we really spend time to design our alliance. We really want to make sure that's solid and that's strong before we even really considered taking the next step forward to make it actually happening.
Mhm. There are a few things I remember about that design alliance. And I'm really appreciative of Chishan having the previous experience. So thankfully that did not quite work out in perfect way. So I teach all of us something. And so in our design alliance, there are three things that really stood out for me. One is Chishan mentioned, if any time that this business or this project that we're doing is impacting our friendship, that we can no longer be friends, let's stop the work and let's be friends. And that really gave me like the foundation of, the color, the texture of our relationship together. And I see how much Chishan is, really appreciating our relationship as friends. And then another thing is we're going to have fun. If we're not having fun, we need to pause and design and redesign. Yeah. And the third thing is if anyone in the relationship, the three of us, is having any kind of feeling that is not sitting well with us, say it at the first time that we notice it. Like, don't drag, don't try to hold it in, don't suppress it. Just open communication, be honest with one another. We have permission to be raw, to be vulnerable, and trust that we will support this together. And so these things, as you can see, I can still remember. And we talked about this almost a year ago. And I still remember it so vividly because I'm really trying to apply these in our work together and in our friendship. And that makes a right relationship.
It so does. Thank you for laying it out. Like that's a formula for folks who are listening. Those are some questions they can ask folks that they're partnering with, project teams, or a business partner, or someone you're living with. It doesn't have to also be in the business context. How have you navigated, if there has been any, I use the terminology crunchy bits, like anything that's been challenging or there's been tension. You mentioned you have a design around let's name it. So has that had to happen, and what's that been like?
I don't know whether
for either of you.
Yeah. I don't know whether Chishan feel the same as me. It's actually at the beginning stage where, Chishan would joke that Chishan is a foreigner in China, and I am half a foreigner in China because I've lived over 10 years overseas and just moved back. And So we're just like, okay, let's do this thing. And our other partner, Mei Ling, is quite, well versed with the market in China and how to do things there. And so for a moment, we started to misalign on how much work is actually needed to get our work out there, the info session, the posters that are going to be made, and then the articles, and then the posts, and just lots of things, which was out of my expectation. Like, wow, I didn't realize what I committed to. And I think it was similar to Chishan, like, oh my God, what did I commit to? I just thought we can do a fun thing together. And it turns out to be, wow, there's so much commitment. Well, it was no surprise to our other partners. It's like, yeah, of course, this is how things are done here. And so we spent about 2 meetings, I remember, just to really get aligned on what we know about marketing, like in our own knowledge. What are some assumptions that we're making? What parts are aligned? What parts are not? And after those 2 meetings, I feel like we are kind of on the same page again, and we could go forward again. I don't know, Chen, what was your experience with that? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. It was definitely a steep learning curve of learning how to market in China, for sure. Yeah, and I have to say, I really want to give credit to Chan and Mei Ling, because I think in the beginning, when we first started this project, I had a really busy schedule, and they really took up more of the slack. And I think it all really started from us having that design alliance and really trusting the relationship, because I think they could have easily said, okay, we're doing like 70%, you're doing like 20 top, right? This is not balanced. But they were just like happily taking on more when we started doing, and just I think that just, I think, indicative of their commitment to the relationship. And I feel like now, and then as we progress, it becomes like much more spacious and generous in terms of, I think now Chan's having a really busy schedule, so I can step in and do a little bit more. And I think it creates more of that. We're not counting the hours, we're not counting the minute, who's doing more, who's doing less. It's just more about what's needed here, who's available to do it, and then who will step in to do it. And I think it's been, I have to say, just really wonderful and beautiful process, and a lot of learning from on my end, and working with these 2 amazing ladies. And I, yeah, so it's that's what's been so far for us, I think.
Another beautiful expression of right relationship. So as you were talking, I was seeing like the dance that you're in together, and the weaving in and out, and the reciprocity that needs to happen in any container, professionally, socially, personally, and that foundation of the designed alliance. It's like mission critical. It's mission critical, because then you had permission to say, wait, something's out of balance. Let's have a conversation about this. Let's be conscious where and when folks are putting in energy, and what is being in right relationship with that. So congratulations. This is where new businesses often break down. It's the inability to have those conversations, and people go into old patterns of unhealed, toxic behaviors from past work experiences, from our upbringing, and we can't talk about it and move forward. So I'm just really excited. Excited for this offering, but even more excited for how potent it must be and will continue to become, because of who the 3 of you are being while you work together. That feels really important. You're both speaking quite a bit about working in China, and I know you're both of Chinese descent, and it feels really important to touch on that, because I think a lot of our listeners are not from Asia, and I want to make sure that we hear a bit more about your culture and contextualizing it through right relationship. And that I know is a big open-ended question. So come at it whichever way feels natural for you. Here's some context I'll provide. I said this to you both. We're getting an opportunity to work more in Asia. And folks have heard that Chishan's on a project with us. Actually, so is Chang. And one of the things I'm really appreciating, I'm noticing this distinction from the West. There's a level of humility and appreciation of the work that this particular organization is investing in their people that I don't see in other parts of the world. So I'm curious about your take on that and anything else that feels relevant to this massive question I've just posed. You want to start us off, Chang? Yeah.
Sure. I'll say what's coming to my mind. I also joke that I'm not a typical Chinese, and I kind of, I'm a weird one anyways. But what I see in the culture that I grew up in, the sense of boundaries, or the other way to say it, like the collectiveness of things, are probably not the same as the Western society. And so it's also a really highly contextual culture where things are probably, a lot of them are not named directly. Like boundaries are not made with really clear language. But if you understand the culture, if you know the language, if you know the people well, oh, that sentence actually means a no. But if you don't, it can be a little bit hard to get so is it a yes or no? There's no clear yes or no. That being said, I also want to say, there's a really funny thing that my English friend pointed out, and he was learning Chinese, and he said, Chinese language is so blunt. Diabetes. Is it diabetes? Yes. And the Chinese word for that is sugary urine disease.
Huh.
You cannot get more direct than that. And
nope. It is what it is.
Yeah. It is what it is. Yeah. And in that way, the Chinese are really direct, and they will not shy away from telling you, oh, you put on some weight. What have you been eating? It's so common to hear this kind of comments from close friends, relatives, or even strangers that you only met for a couple of times. And so I find the culture really interesting, and I'm still trying to learn it. So
that's
I wonder what Chishan thinks.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I literally was like, where do I start? There's so many things I talk about. Yeah. Share. It is such a big topic. And I think I'll start with personal, because it's so broad. I definitely went through a whole, I think, transition myself around, because I grew up in the US, and I do consider myself very American in the way I think and the way I operate. And when I came to China, I definitely had a lot of this, oh, I'm right, they're wrong, very much narrow way of creating a lot of judgment around how I think things should be and all this stuff. And again, crediting to Coactive, I remember doing a Coactive course and then, talking about balance and looking at what is the 2% truth of everything. And then that kind of opened my, and I just realized, oh my gosh, I am such a, a-hole. I'm so judgmental. I can't believe how I could think I was right on all these things. So, and really allow me to appreciate so much, so many things here, and really appreciating all the depth and the different things I'm getting from here. And what I'm trying to say is, I feel like sometimes it's like what we don't know, we create so many stories around it, because we're only based on what we know. And once we kind of know more what we don't know, and then we realize how little we know. I know, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent.
No, it's beautiful.
But yeah, and I think what I do like about just I feel like I'm constantly being educated on how little I'm actually seeing, how little of the perspective I'm seeing. There's so much more I need to expand my perspective, and I think that's what it is. It's very much a perspective expansive kind of process for me.
Mhm.
So yeah, and when it comes down to like facilitating, coaching, you have to think in a totally different lens. You have to
Mhm.
come from a different place and
Mhm.
and address in a different way, and knowing a lot of where they're coming from to kind of do that.
It sounds like your process of really meeting the culture where they're at has been a journey of you getting in right relationship with self, with other, with the ecosystem you're a part of. That's what I heard in that. So that's like a really important takeaway for our listeners is when we are not just working cross culturally, but starting in new environments. What assumptions am I coming in with? What judgments am I making up about people, the system, the work we're up to, and how can you clear that? So that it's like a clean slate, so that what is really there can appear versus a made up story within our heads. So I love where you're going. It wants me to go off on a tangent around human supremacy, but I'm going to just hold that for a minute because that's a good one. But I would love if there's guidance you can provide colleagues like myself and others who are coming into Asia and doing work. Like, what are things you wish we would do differently so that the culture is being met in more of a context of right relationship?
You said the keyword already. Like both of you mentioned curiosity, and a few other things may help as well. When things are talked about from a place of like a somatic experience, like, oh, this is how I'm experiencing things, not necessarily judging really quickly, like because something went wrong, that's why I'm feeling this way. But I feel like when the communication is clean and open, we can talk about certain feelings. And I think this somatic is really a good sign of, something needs to be communicated. And actually have the courage just to say, it can be a hard thing to say, but it can be said, and it can be said with care and with neutrality, and with compassion for self and for what we're not familiar with. Um, yeah, and then curiosity definitely play a big part. I'm also thinking boundaries. Weirdly, that comes to me as well. Like Chinese people that I know are really friendly in ways that if we see a foreigner and they behave not the same as us, sometimes we would like to joke and say, hey, you got to do it our way, and all that. But it's all out of like playfulness and stuff. It's not necessarily come from a place of, oh, you gotta, otherwise you're being disrespectful. I don't know any Chinese that actually does that to foreigners. We're actually quite welcoming of difference and different cultures, especially if you're visibly foreign. And if you bring a different perspective, I think people are willing to give enough space for that.
Mhm. It's beautiful.
So I think there were, of course, because I do some cross-cultural training, there are definitely a number of models like Erin Meyer's cultural map, the Hofstede, and Aperian, Global Smart, kind of different aspects. They kind of lay out in different dimensions of looking at different cultures. But I do think, in one aspect I think is so interesting, and I think Chrissy and I talked about in our recent training is you have cultures like China, Asian cultures who are rooted in such deep spiritual, religious, a lot of philosophy, and at the same time, they're very much rational, linear thinkers. So it's
Mhm.
almost like a contradiction. And I've noticed in the way when I'm training, when I'm working with Chinese leaders or Chinese potential coaches, um, that things need, and I could be wrong on this, that it feels like I need to kind of lay out more give a lot more context, kind of more step by step, more of a clear kind of through line, even though at the same time they're very high context cultures, meaning their language is very high context, a lot of unspoken, meaning like Chang was saying, a lot of sort of nuance in their language. So I find that two dichotomy incredibly interesting.
It's fascinating. So that could, you're saying part of what manifests is this desire to maybe get it right. So the more information I have, like here's the steps, break down, the concept or the skill so that I can get it right so I can progress. Is that a micro way of saying the macro thing you just said?
Yes. Yeah, I think especially for the educated, I think there is a unspoken drive or culture of we need to succeed, we need to be smart, we need to be ahead, and we need to progress. And then yet you come from a culture with such deep rooted spirituality, philosophy, and all that.
We'll have to have a different episode for all of this. It's such a rich conversation. So thank you for opening it up and supporting us to just think a bit differently as how we are working, in Asia and with different cultures. And one of the things too, Chishan, you and I have talked about, there's so many unique and different cultures within Asia. And that feels like a really important awareness for business leaders and facilitators and coaches to have. It's so diverse. So growing our range as leaders to have cultural awareness, but also an ability to listen into what will maybe serve over here versus over here. It's going to look different. So we need to be more agile. And I feel like that's part of right relationship, from a self place, which is growing my capacity to serve different kinds of humans in different contexts. It's yes, that's one of the reasons we're here. Speaking of diversity, Chang, one of the things I love about your work is that you serve introverts, and feels really important to touch on that. Obviously, we have introverts listening and introverts who are leading teams and projects and introverts who are coaches and facilitating workshops. So in the context of right relationship, what can you share with us around introverts?
Right. Well, that's part of my passion. I'm proudly an introvert myself. So what I see so far, again, I'm still learning. I'm learning from my clients. I'm learning from literature, books, videos. What is clear for me now is introversion, extroversion. It just indicates our different preferences in terms of how we'd like to be in relationships and how we'd like to build relationships. So, for example, introverts probably find it more comfortable when we're having one-on-one conversations rather than a big group, having a meeting together, everyone speaking at the same time and trying to top each other's voices. It can be quite stressful. Or if not stressful, like an introvert might find that just not my preferred way to communicate my ideas. They might find it much easier to write an email after the meeting and to send out to everyone to state that what has come to the mind during the meeting, but did not have the opportunity to put into the space. So knowing the preferences actually exist, being aware of, okay, I thrive in this kind of setups, and it takes more energy for me to show up in other setups or make relationship that way. So it starts with the self-awareness and knowing the boundaries. And for a lot of introverts, energy management is a big topic, right? So there's a metaphor saying that we're like the phone battery that would charge during the night, and then throughout the day, the battery just gets more and more flat. And towards the end, it's completely flat. I need to charge again. But for extroverts, it's more it's like solar panels. like, oh, the sun is out. So am I. I'm alive again. And so they can go on with the day and feeling more and more energized. And so for introverts, it's like, if I know something is big happening tomorrow, if I have a networking event happening, so how can I start to manage my energy the night before or even way earlier than that? And how do I set time for recharge after the event that is energy consuming? And so all of those things are getting us ready so that this is well taken care of, so that I can go out and make the right relationships. So that's what I learned so far. And it seems working for me and for my clients.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's such an important piece of right relationship. So whether we're leading folks, knowing our preferences so we can be working in wellness, right? And not just working in wellness, but living in wellness. And how do we take care of our systems so we can take care of others? So that being said, I'm going to start closing the arc of this. Chang, tell our listeners where they can find you and go deeper into this work. And this will all be in the show notes, but just give us the high level.
Right. So my little website is called introvertleaderawakening.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I think it's Zhang, ZHANG 321.
Oh, right.
Because there are just hundreds and millions of people share the same name as me in China. So yes.
But there's only one you. There is only one you. Beautiful introvert, powerful you. And Chishan, tell us too how listeners can go deeper into your work. And if you can also let us know if there's a coach or a coaching with your whole body retreat on the schedule and again, we'll put this in the show notes, but please let us know.
Yes, thank you. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Chishan Lin, CHISHANLIN. I'm sure you'll see on the site. Also Facebook. I know that will be also on the site, and also Instagram. And I just finally, I don't have a website yet, but I finally figured out what it's called. It's going to be called the Presence Room. So that hopefully will be out soon.
That's brilliant.
And then we're hoping to do one around next spring, next summer, overseas. We're still determining on a location, somewhere perhaps Southeast Asia. So
amazing. Okay, so listeners, if this work has piqued your interest in these two leaders, follow them so you can get the information about when the next retreats will be up in 2026. So exciting. So close us out. Chishan, you go first. Like your for this moment, your wish, your hope, your final prayer around right relationship and where we're at in this moment.
Oh, I think I'm going to need a minute. I'm sorry. I wish I can think of what to say, but I might need a moment to think about that.
Thank you for asking for what you need. Chang, are you ready to rock?
Yeah. I'll try my best.
Yeah.
So we talk about right relationships, we talk about leadership, we talk about coaching. And for me, the three concepts are so well connected because I see leadership as relational rather than positional. So building the right relationships for me means building leadership. And also how coaching comes in is, we talked about this, like what Chishan with you, Christy, is coaching skills, like listening, the ability to articulate, to ask powerful questions, to be curious, to be non-judgmental. These are all actual leadership competencies in the workplaces. So I am excited to be able to talk about such cool stuff on this podcast and really start to make the connection for leaders, for coaches, for humans out there so that we can all be in better relationships with ourselves, with others, with the world.
That's powerful. You said it when we were setting up our time together. Coaching skills exist to form right relationship. said
Mhm.
by Chang Zhang. Like, you heard it here, folks. And that's a beautiful synthesis of, one of the, I will say, cornerstones of what we're exploring around right relationship. So thank you for your presence. Chishan, what do you got for us?
Oh, wow. So I think maybe kind of tying to what we started the conversation about, how can we be in relation with ourselves? How are we able to be in presence of who we are, and how we are being with ourselves? And if we can get that in right relationship, we'll automatically be able to have right relationship with others. So my vision is that we all are in right relationship with ourselves.
May it be so. May it be so. May we start there and then notice the impact that has in our ability to grow our capacity to serve others and serve systems. Appreciate you both so much. Thank you for staying up late and being in this exploration with me and with UpLevel, and being my coactive colleagues and sisters and spreading this good work across the globe. I appreciate you both so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
So
you.
honored to be.
See.
Thank you.
Yes.